Well, I want to welcome here on Wednesday. Julie's going to be joining us in a little bit. I'm Scott Hensler, and Julie Flores, as I mentioned, will be joining us. There's been a lot of stuff going on. Now, I kind of want to touch on what the show that I did last night on my other show, Scott Hensler Network. Of course, you're here on Tinfoil Hat Club. And the main idea behind that was to do the checks and balances necessary to affirm that an individual's house is in order. Because God is a God of order. Now, we need to understand with that is elementary. It's basic. And without that, things can be in an absolute chaos. And I can assure you, as surely as the sun will rise tomorrow, that curses come out of it. And I've mentioned that there's even curses that God brings upon people. Now, as horrible and terrible as that sounds, we need to remember that His laws were written from day one. And the point of it is, in the book of Revelation, when we see that Jesus was very concerned about the behavior of women, i.e., those things of Jezebel, that in the last days, obviously, Jezebel was going to be a problem. If it was that bad, and Jesus had to talk about it in the book of Revelation, then it was that bad. And I'm seeing an epidemic of it. I'm seeing borderline personality disorder at an all-time high. I'm seeing behaviors, and that's part of what tonight is about, and Julie's got a whole thing that she's going to be doing that may bring a little bit away from it, but I think it all ties together because of the issues in the spirit realm, those things that are inflicted upon us because of our behaviors. Now, I also want to mention, before I move on, that if I were to stand down, if I were to receive those things that actually contradict the Word of God and would allow those things to take hold, or I receive them, then I become in agreement with it. If I become in agreement with it, then I become one of the issue, of the error, of the sin, of those things that contradict the Word of God. Now, I've been doing this a very, very long time. And as I mentioned last night, that if I had not been doing this, that I can't tell you how many phone calls that I had received from frantic mothers whose little girls and little boys, but let's just use girls, were being accosted in their bed, not by human, but by demonic. And that there was an obvious target on the back of their daughters because there had been already sexual attempts against them for molestation, even for kidnapping. Now, this means that there was a target on their back. There's a curse in the family. The individual who's full of these demons, and it can be a woman too, by the way. I can assure you that I have a high percentage of those who come to my office who've been violated by women. So it goes both ways here. But the point of it is, if I were to stand down, then in the future, as I speak right now, then there would be those innocent children who would be violated. Do you understand what I'm saying? We've been called to a level of battle. And that means battling for you. That means battling for your children. And if I were to allow these demonized individuals who really don't know the Word of God, who do not know the order of things, that obviously are operating in mind control, witchcraft, or whatever, if I were to allow them to tell me what to do, to inflict a thought process that would cause me to stand down or back off, who loses? So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to follow up with what I was talking about Tuesday night before I get into the rest of it here. And that is that the next time that somebody speaks out of line, that condemns me or speaks down to me or believes they have a right to judge me. And I noted last night that there are 25 verses in the New Testament that tell me to do what I do. If Jesus tells me, if God tells me to do it, then if you've got a problem with it, then you take it up with God. There's nothing in the Testament that tells me not to do it. Okay, so how do you get that all screwed up? The church, doctrine, psychology, inspirations of a community that is out of order by a belief system that truly doesn't believe in the Word of God, period. And so that means that your behavior, the way that you're conducting yourself as a so-called professing Christian, that in reality you're worshiping a different Jesus, because those commandments came from Jesus himself. And I'm just going to leave it at that. So what I'm going to do is the next woman that calls me whose child is being violated, I'm going to give them the names and the phone numbers of the women who have harassed me, and I'm going to tell that woman that you need to check with them first before I minister to your daughter who's screaming at night with nightmares and night terrors, that's having things enter them in inappropriate places, and to a point that they would actually, rape kits could be used, but then of course since it's a spirit, there's nothing to indicate of any DNA, that they'll have to, that this ministering or the deliverance that I will do will have to be okayed by a nutcase. Because I tell you what, anyone who thinks that it's okay to allow children to be violated, anyone who thinks that we should look the other way, comes from a mindset that puts you in a position that I see you as a threat to society. I'm just at a point where I've been doing this so long now, and that I'm still at ground zero with 90% of those people who call themselves Christians. I'm stunned. I'm absolutely stunned and shocked. And it sometimes is like being hit with a baseball bat, because I think I've done something. I'm encouraged to move on, and then all of a sudden I get hit by a meteor. It's just amazing. And again, house divided cannot stand. So what's truly going on here? Well, I think some of what I'm going to talk about has something to do with this, but social engineering or psyops or brainwashing or those things of media, and those things in the church too, by the way. We're normally not going to try and talk about too much of the church and everything else, but this needs to be said because I want those who are in the occult, those who are on the fence or whatever, I want you to understand something. That when you made an attempt to go to church, I want you to listen to me. See, we've all been given a gift and a destiny. I think we can all agree to that, okay? Now, in that, it may be that you have a prophetic gift. You may have in your bloodline a connection that is to be used mightily in these last days for the purpose of bringing others out of this particular situation and or dealing with evil in the way that God would want you to do it. So let me make an example. You are a musician. You have a talent of singing, playing an instrument, but the devil has come along, and I say devil, when I say devil, he's too busy with Obama, okay? So he's not going to pay you any mind. So you're going to get the cronies. So you got these low-level guys that come after you, and believe me, they're a pain in the rear end. And they have influenced you over the years to be drawn iniquitously towards different types of music that was actually orchestrated by the fallen angels. And so now you're ensnared and you're entrapped into a particular mindset, thought, or life that you think you want to live, being heavily influenced by demonic music, when in reality, you were given a gift that would have been for praise and worship of our Father, would have been something to edify, would have been something to have brought a beauty to the ears of the believer and the non-believer, by the way, because music is an incredible tool for soothing the beast, for calming the nerves, for bringing joy. And we all know that. But when you have other music that basically brings terror, alters the spirit, causes an individual to even be brainwashed into a particular behavior such as violence, and by the way, video games are very much like that. And I'm going to kind of cover a little bit about that before Julie comes on. And the point of it is that our ear gates and eye gates, it's very important to protect them. Because what we take in, it's garbage in, garbage out. And anything that is not of God, anything that is of the devil, are going to be at two opposite ends. You cannot drink the cup of demons and the cup of Christ. You cannot have two masters. So you will either hate one or love the other. And the point of it is that you can't serve them equally. Now, the tug of war, those things that we call the devil on one shoulder and God on the other, or the Holy Spirit that's whispering to us, good and evil, is good cop, bad cop. But the point of it is that our decisions that we make can be based in behaviors from our upbringing, from curses that are placed upon us, or those things of sin that we've been involved with, including, pharmakeia, drugs, alcoholism, that our minds are not thinking clearly, and so we engage in behaviors that ultimately lead to our destruction. Now, we're in a different world now. This isn't 100 years ago. This isn't 2,000 years ago. We're at a time that the influences not only of the spirit realm, not only of those things of media and the government, which are of the spirit realm in particular, because these things I would refer to as a doctrine of demons, that what we have also is an electronic means. Now, as I mentioned last night, I was pretty heavy on the women, and Thursday, tomorrow, I'm going to be basically slamming the men. You've been called to a job, and so my point here is that everything that's being done is to divide men and women, to divide the home, to infiltrate and to influence and to cause a stinking thinking within children that they become rebellious. And we see in Scripture that it is very important to respect our parents so it goes well with us. Well, that's a big statement. When we break that down, if it doesn't go well with you, what does that mean? Well, it means bad relationships. It means divorce. It means ill health. It means poverty. It means anxieties and sadness and just a general life that we see that is destructive because we have such a high suicide rate in the world, not just the United States, but everywhere. It's because people aren't happy. Now, it's also because there's a spiritual influence and possible curses of early death, premature death, and suicide. Now, some of these can be induced by psychotronics. Again, those things of electronic means that cause a stimulation in the body and the brain that can cause the depression, that can cause the ill thoughts, that can cause those things that ultimately lead to our behaviors that ultimately lead to destruction. Because in our behaviors, though there is grace, that ultimately in a time will be turned over to the tormentor. And what that means is that because of our behaviors, eventually God takes his hands off. And next thing you know, we're dealing with the devil hand-to-hand combat. And many of you know exactly what I'm talking about. And again, when I say devil, I'm talking about demons. And sometimes fallen angels. Fallen angels, unfortunately, are in the midst of that whole thing, too. So tomorrow night, I want to address that to make sure that I make my stance on how men should behave. Now, when we're talking about futures, when we're talking about those things that are coming upon the earth, what we're experiencing and what we're seeing is that ultimately men's hearts will fail them for fear for those things coming on the earth. Now, we have not been given that spirit of fear, so it obviously comes from the demonic side. And when we base our relationship, when we base our livelihood, the way we live, the way we think on fear, then we are easily manipulated, because as creatures of habit, we're one to avoid pain. We're one to avoid conflict. We're one to avoid fear-based situations that cause anxieties, that cause those things of depression, anxiousness, all of these things, right? Waiting for the other shoe to drop is really what it amounts to. See, that's where we are in this world. And by the way, that's a clear sign that post-traumatic stress is just around the corner. And as I mentioned before, post-traumatic stress is the devil's playground. So again, through our behaviors, which can be induced by curses, can be induced by the behaviors of our parents. Cloud and Townsend wrote an excellent article or book on the mom factor, on how mothers alter and change the way that we act in life. Fathers do too, and believe me, they've written about that. But the point of it is not everything is completely demonic, though it may be demonically initiated. So we can have people that are already programmed to behave a certain way, and they are their worst enemy. Now, what I've noticed with men is that they've become somewhat feminized in their behaviors because of the influences of society. Now, what I mean is that there's a point to fight and there's a point to stand down, fight or flight. And unfortunately, the men who are professing Christians have been programmed by the churches and by societies to not judge, to not take a stand, to not fight, to not take a stance. Because we're not, you guys have been programmed not to judge, when in reality, yes, we are. We're just not to judge when we're in our own sin of the sin that we're judging. But once we get our house clean, once we get our house in order, once we understand right from wrong, once we are called to a higher standing, you bet your sweet rear end you're the judge. Because without judging, I can't determine whether it's wrong or right. I can't determine whether you're in sin or whether you're in grace. And if you're in a sin, then it is my responsibility to make sure that my brother doesn't stumble and fall. And if I stand with this idea that I'm not to do such a thing, then I'm not going to be there for my brother. To be, what I will be is what's referred to as an enabler. And an enabler, and I'm going to be bringing that up tomorrow night because it's in the Ahab category, and that's a bad place to be, because it means those who are in fear, hence women usually, and I've talked about that last night because of the things that were done to them, that there's a point in time where they need to protect themselves because no one else is doing it, and so they assume the role. So you see, it's not their fault, but ultimately their behavior that comes out of it is. Everyone is responsible for their behavior, but what I'm getting at is that there is an influence that can sway us like the rudder of a ship. No matter how big the ship is, it has a rudder. It has some means to steer and control it. And something so small, comparatively to the size of the ship, is able to do a massive amount of movement. Now, when we come to behaviors, we can have those things that are reactive. We can be one that triggers easily. It may be because we have ulcers. It may be because we have an open wound or sore because of something that came along like betrayal. Those things of rejection, those things of abandonment, and those are terrible things, and those are unfortunately what we see in divorces, or what caused the divorce. And so we then are in what I refer to as a survival mode, because we're avoiding the pain at any cost. And in that avoidance, then there can be a demonic influence to cause an individual to behave a certain way for them to think that they're actually protecting themselves, that they're actually doing those things that they think will save them from a situation that can be very toxic, very dangerous to them, when in reality they're being set up. Now, unfortunately, the so-called Christian church has been set up. They've been set up for the fall, the great falling away. Their hearts will fail them too, because they're not capable of dealing with the spiritual fight that is coming. Now, even if you're a non-Christian, it will be overwhelming to deal with hybrids, to deal with manifestations of the demonic, to deal with weaponry that can cause blindness, that can cause irritation of the bowel where you actually lose your contents. There can be those things where you hear voices, where you actually think there's demons in your head, when in reality it's induced by psychotronics. And so everything that we're dealing with, we're obviously in the same boat, regardless of our belief. And so the mainstay of this show, the Tinfoil Hat Club, is to bring everyone up to speed, regardless of your stance, to understand that we are going to have to fight together. Because the tyranny of those that wish to inflict upon us their control, which means elimination, which means destruction, which means enslavement. And in an enslavement, you'll always have people who won't go along with it, and so therefore they will eliminate them. So most of us, like myself, who have a stance that is very public, will be eliminated. Now, it'll be through the grace of God that I pull through this, or I survive, so I can continue to fight. And that is my prayers. That is what I've told God that I want to do. So we'll just have to see how the cards play out when that happens. But I am not going to be based and operate in fear. I am not going to be intimidated. I am going to stand as a man of God, bought with the price of the blood of Jesus, and I'm going to move forward as I'm called to do. So again, part of the brainwashing, part of the monarch, part of the MK Ultra, the PSYOPs, is to use those people within the church to cause people not to fulfill what God has called them to do. Now let me get back to those who have been called in the occult to come forward. So many of you that have gone into the churches have tried to connect, have tried to feel the presence of the Lord, but because the demonic is allowed to run rampant in the churches, because I'll tell you what, Satan runs them, the fallen angels are the managers, and then you've got the floor managers, that's the demons. And the places are run that way. So you come in, you may have a gift, you may have a calling, you feel in your spirit and your heart that you're being drawn to God, but you come to a church and see that it's nothing but more occult activity. And so you turn around and you walk away. It's just like those musicians that are called to do those things of enlightenment, or I should say, to enhance the praise and worship through the gift that you're given, that you're drawn to another way and you're enslaved into that. So you walk into a situation, you see that those people who were in the church are actually enslaved in their doctrines of demons, and a belief system that has nothing to do with Scripture, and a belief system that is a one-to-one parallel to the occult that you've already realized is failing you. So why would you engage in such a behavior? So you turn around and you walk out. I get it. And so we're trying to alter and change that. Now, we can develop what's called demonic soul ties. We can be in a relationship with those who claim to be of God, when in reality, that when this all goes down, Jesus will say, I did not know you. And in that demonic soul tie, then you can be enslaved to an individual that through their intimidation, through their projecting onto you their thoughts of how you're supposed to behave, when you try and break away from the doctrines, they ensnare you and pull you back. They actually make you feel guilty about your advancements towards the truth. Ooh, how many of you had that happen? that some schmuck comes along and now tears down everything that you learned, everything that you figured out in your spirit is right, and you're being drawn towards the truth, and now someone ropes you and brings you down and hogties you. Okay? That can be through a soul tie. So those things need to be broken. When I left the church, if I'm around people like that, then when I go into prayer, I systematically go through and I start cutting those things off of me, making sure that I'm not tethered, making sure that I'm not tied, making sure that their long arm of the demonic doesn't come through the spirit realm and has its hand on my shoulder to guide me in a direction that leads me to destruction. I know as bizarre and as crazy as that sounds, unfortunately, that is a fact. And I've experienced it over and over and over again in these so-called house of God. Now, there are houses of God. There is the church. There is those things that the gates of hell will not prevail against. But it's such a small remnant, and so it's very confusing for anyone to have discernment, because the church didn't teach it, to be set free because the church didn't have deliverance, and or didn't educate you on the knowledge that comes from the Holy Spirit to make good decisions. Now, another thing that can happen is witches' covens can come in and cast spells. They can put mind control, witchcraft, those things of bondage onto individuals. So as you try and take in the knowledge, that's not going to happen. Because since the church is not actively doing spiritual warfare and tearing down strongholds, then therefore the church is in a stronghold. Now, in that can come curses because of your behavior. So in reality, when we see curses, or when I deal with curses, what I see is a connection through a bloodline. So you ever heard, someone say, well, he's just like his Uncle Joe. He's an alcoholic, he's a rageaholic, he's going to end up in jail, he's a liar, he's a thief, he's a womanizer. Well, you know what? These are curses of the demonic that is handed down to the third and fourth and even to the 10th generation. Now, what that means is that the curse has not been broken in a family, it has not been addressed, and now you have individuals who are in bondage. And from one person to another, from one bloodline to another, it continues on. And now, some families who seem to have prosperity that have absolutely nothing to do with the Lord or with God, then what you'll find that they're actually an instrument and a tool to be an influence to others to make them believe that they can be successful without God. And so the devil does not pay attention to them. In fact, they're even blessed by some degree by demonic influences to give a positive outlook, to bring them money, to bring them wealth, to bring them fame, to give the illusion that that they can do these things without God. And same thing with psychic reading, same thing with clairvoyance, same thing with necromancy, and that demons will assist and allow these things to happen and even be there, part of the communication in the spirit realm for familiar spirits. And the whole thing is to trickery, to bewitch people, to bring a state of mind of thinking that this stuff really works, that I can find out about my dead grandfather or dead grandmother, and or where the money was stashed, or one of these things. And Julie's even talked about that. So there's a delusion. Now, this illusion that is being perpetrated in the church is basically the same thing, because what the people are thinking under the false doctrine, that as long as they act and behave this particular way, that they will then be raptured out. They then will be predestined. They then will be wealthy. They will have those things given to them by God, and that's not the order of things. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a fight on our hands. The fight is for us and our children. When we're taken out, then our children will be victims. Just like I was mentioning early, that when a woman comes to me and her child's being violated by the spirit realm, you're darn tootin' I'm going to roll up my sleeves and I'm going to start fighting for that family. How can I turn my back on a situation like that? How can somebody make accusations that I shouldn't be doing such things when a child's being tormented. The ultimate goal for the demons is to take you out of the way, whether it means take you down or not, but to come after your children. And it goes for everybody. So a lot of you that have been in the occult, that have seen the spirit realm, the demonic, and seen the power and seen those things of evil that are absolutely terrifying, that when you make a choice to serve God, you too will be in a fight. I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. So that should tell you how drastic the devil is, or the demons, to pull you back into the realm. Now, the ultimate realm is for your destruction, because those who have rejected Christ is accursed. Those who have not believed on to, then in the last days, when we find out and go before the Most High God or the Bema seat before Christ, whether we were in or not. Now, that means that you have a seal on your forehead, or that your name is written in the Lamb's Book of Life. Now, those who are in the church, many believe that they think that that has already taken place, when in reality they're actually worshiping someone else. And it's very confusing for those in the occult, because most of you know that come from there, you see that the same behaviors in the church mimic the occult. Now, let me get back into some things. Now, those who are being gang stalked, I got a couple questions for you, and some of this is public record. So don't worry about if you send me an email to give me some information. And my point is that if most of you are 40 and younger, maybe even 45 and younger, your blood type was already documented. This was a universal plan that was put in place in the 70s to take the blood of every newborn, to sample it for the DNA, or I should say the type, the blood type. Okay? So the United Nations, in their computer database, has your name, your Social Security, and your blood type. And now they're working frantically also to get your DNA, now that they've mapped that out. So what I'm asking is that those who are gang stalked, those who are dealing with issues of harassment, whether electronic or demonic, or the combination of those two, because they can actually nowadays be the same. And by the way, next Tuesday, I am going to go in extreme depth about gang stalking and psychotronics, those electronic means that are mimicking the demonic, that are causing your life to be miserable. I've really been hitting this hard in my research. I'm working with radio equipment now. I've mentioned before that I have oscilloscopes, I have signal generators, I have desktop voltmeters. I've got things interface with my computer so I can do spectrum analyzing, field strengthening, resonance, finding the cues. You name it, I can do it now. And I'm working with some ELF receivers to try and tune those in to see if I can detect that. So what I'm getting at is I'm trying to find out if those who are being gang stalked, do you have a particular type of blood? Are you O negative? Are you positive? Okay? And so what I'm asking for those people listening, if you'll send me an email, scott@scotthensler.org. You don't need to give your name, okay? Your email address will probably just pop up. But the point of it is, if you're being gang stalked, I'm asking you to send me your blood type. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to run the numbers, or I'm going to see the percentage of those that are gang stalked, what type of blood type. So otherwise, is there a specific blood type that is the ones being targeted more than anyone else? Now, electroencephalograms, if you've ever had your brain mapped, if you've ever gone to a neurologist or something that, like the government has these mobile apps that they come and they'll check and make sure that you don't have any brain damage or that everything is okay. Well, these things were mapping the brain. And when they find the electrical signature of your mind, then through the electronic means, and I'm just going to touch on a little bit of this, then they've got your code. They've got your neural code, and then they can do those things of gang stalking through cell phone towers, through radio broadcasting, microwave, ELF, Wi-Fi, and even people with devices of the ultrasonic, subsonic, those things, even of auditory, can inflict all kinds of damage and pain and issues. And in fact, let me bring this up. Even if you've gone to have X-rays, there may be, let's say you go to a dentist, you may have holes in your jaw. That's a one indication that you've had microwaves sent to you. Your skin flakes all the time. You may have sores that don't heal. You may have bad circulation. And if you've had an MRI, which I don't recommend because we're finding out just how bad that really is, that they're actually finding holes in your brain. Now, that can come from the artificial sugars, too. Okay, loss of hair. I know a gal who lost all of her hair. Okay, and amazingly, what was the group there in Seattle? Bosley. They took what hair she had and they actually managed to completely restore her hair. Absolutely incredible. Absolutely amazing. They did a wonderful, beautiful job. I have to say, if anyone's wondering if Bosley's for real, they're for real. I've seen it. When you see a woman who's almost completely bald, then have a full set of hair, it's just amazing. Dents in your scalp. So like you're looking in the mirror and all of a sudden it looks like someone hit you with a ball-peen hammer in your forehead or something. Okay? These are all weapons, electronic weapons that are inducing these things to your body. Some of you may have gastrointestinal issues. Some of you may have urinary tract infections and or you just all of a sudden, incontinence or something along that line. These are electronic weapons. So again, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to analyze to see what's going on out there. That anybody that may be being gang stalked, and you may not know you're being gang stalked. You may not know that definition, and you're having nightmares and night terrors, and you're having all kinds of voices in your head and all this stuff, and even people breaking into your house, or people harassing you in the grocery store or at the coffee shop or in the park or on the street or trying to run you off the road. This is all part of gang stalking. And what they're doing is that through the stimulation, we can see, we can hear, we can taste, we can smell, we can feel, right? That what they're able to do is they're actually able to, because once they've mapped your brain, then your brain is a transmitter. And in that transmission, they're able to actually see the behaviors that's inflicted upon you, how your alpha, your beta, your theta, your gamma waves in your brain, the 5 functions of the brain, how they react. So what they're doing is they're mapping behaviors. So they're doing a type of civil testing of behaviors to see how you react to such things inflicted upon you. So if that sounds like you, then please email me, scott@scotthinser.org, and let me know your blood type, because I'm thinking that there may be a connection there, and or that you've had an electroencephalogram, meaning that you've gone and they've put wires to your head. Now you can have an electromagnetic too, because that's actually where cyclotronics comes from. There's a specific technology behind that is able to do the transducing. So if you've had any of those things done, let me know, because I want to map it out. Now, guess what? Because of that technology, I want you to listen to me, that if your brain's been mapped, that the occipital lobe, where you're basically the 25 hertz of those things that take place in the brain, that your eyes, I want you to listen to me, your eyes can be used as cameras. Everywhere you go, they see what you see. Now, let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. That is a scary technology. That means, ladies and gentlemen, that while you're making love to your spouse, they're watching the whole thing, and not only that, they're experiencing the whole thing because of the brain waves that come out. That's how bad this has gotten. And that also means, unfortunately, the sick, perverted people within the NSA, the CIA, the FBI, the Department of Homeland Security that use this technology, just think of the pedophile potentials behind this. Look, we're dealing with some very sick people. The research that I'm uncovering is shocking me. I thought demons were bad. No wonder demons are taking over the world. Humans are incredibly perverse. Now, I know that demonization is a part of that issue, but again, as I mentioned, or for the show, about behaviors, okay? We're based in an amazing involuntary behavior with voluntary and those things, all right? Now, this is all, and Julie, if you're listening, hang on. You asked me to go a little bit, so I'm going to finish this out. Infrastructure double duty. Infrastructure double duty. I want you to remember that name. Now, I've had people that come back and say, no, cell towers can't do that. I've installed them. I've worked on that. I explained to you that everything is under computer control. So once you set something up, you can have something piggybacked and you'll never know it. So the infrastructure double duty means cell towers double as these transceivers to do the mind control, the psychotronics. Cell towers, remote control of the brain and thereof. Now that also means broadcast stations, because a lot of the broadcasts actually are within that frequency range, and or two-way communication, such as police departments use, taxi cabs use them, and so forth, that through this wide spectrum of technology that they're still experimenting, they're still trying to see what works, because just like hypnosis, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, it doesn't work on everybody. I don't know whether you know that or not. And so they're trying to find that happy medium that has a mass control ability. So that's where we're at. Infrastructure double duty. That's what these cell towers are. They're cell towers giving us communication for our cell phones, but they're also being used as psychotronics, and that's the terminology for that. Now, this is also referred to as entrainment, that whenever something is done to you, then they can receive the signals to see how your behavior. So if they bring fear into you, then along with a subliminal message, because video, let's say, now we have high definition TV. When high definition TV came along, we now have the ability to go past 30 frames a second, which exceeds the normal video intake into our brains, bringing it up to about 60 or who knows whatever they're bringing it up to. But the point of it is in between the frames, they can more easily slip in the subliminal. So your subconscious sees these things. And these things, along with the entrainment, it's referred to as a silent sound. These emotions that can come along, the emotional signature that they can receive back through what they inject onto you, can be those things of fear and anger and anxieties. And there's even patents on these. So this stuff is real, absolutely real. And unfortunately, I know some of you out there that have problems that we've been praying for or under that situation. All right. So I think I kind of got through everything I wanted to go through. I'm going to be saving a lot of that for next Tuesday, because I'm really going to get in deep, and I'm going to have more suggestions for you, because I'm working on technologies to detect that, and then you'll know. Just real quickly, Julie, get ready, because I'll be bringing you on here. This issue that we have with people thinking that others in office, those who claim to be, pastors in church, we've got a whole lost generation here that really doesn't know what our world was like 10, 20, 30 years ago. And so we have kids that are throwing up the Illuminati signs like the goat head and the 666, and pyramids. And I'm seeing pyramids in the back of people's cars' windows and things like that. And now we're experiencing more false flags. Julie brought up. But all of this that's being done has a mathematical or a quantitative a path. And Julie is really good at figuring that out, and so she's going to be doing a lot of that. And I can assure you that everything that we're bringing up and talking about, that the other people that are in the media out there or the alternative media, I know they listen to us because we talk about things that nobody else talks about. And between Julie and I, we probably have the bigger cojones out there. Okay? And what it means is we're not afraid to speak the truth. And some of it has offended some people and they've never come back. Well, okay, that's the way that goes. Because what we do is we shake the dust off our feet and we go to those who will listen to us. Because many of you are in bondage, many of you have started to learn the truth, and we're keying up and basically ringing the bell that you're answering to. So those who are listening, and by the way, the listenership is starting to increase on this show, which is a good sign. It means that you're coming back and you're telling others, and please do that. The listenership has pretty much stayed the same on the other show, which is a good thing because a lot of would have walked away from that, but it's staying there. And so the point of it is that we're covering both sides. And that's what Julie and I have believe that we've been given the word to do that. And so that's what we're doing. So, Julie, you've been listening to everything. I know that you have a lot to talk about. So, but I was mentioning the signs and the goat head and the numerology and all the stuff that you do. I know that you've come up with a lot of things that reveal that what we've been seeing is false flags. So, go ahead, Julie. Hopefully you're there and you can just pick up where I left off.
Yeah, I'm here. Okay, yeah, what you were talking about, the false flags and the goat head and all this stuff. What I wanted to mostly I wanted to do this show because I wanted to reach people who do not know Jesus, because I want you to have the facts, and then based on those facts, you could make a choice like I did. Okay, I want you to be able to see what's actually going on out there. And then people who are believers that don't go to the church and realize that the Christian organization's a cult just like every other religion out there, then they start wanting to know the facts. Then they start going, hey, wait a minute, and I notice it's really funny because I'll be the first one to start slamming on somebody, and I get chastised for it, get chastened by listeners for it, like when I came out against Trump and all of them, and I get chastened for it by listeners, and they're, oh, shame on you. 2 of the big Christian people on the TV, they saw him, and they had a vision given to them by God. And I'm going, dude, if you're a Satanist, God's not going to use you to go and make the country great again. Well, he can do whatever he wants. That's another lie, people, that they tell these people in the church. He can do whatever he wants. Look, you know what? God can do anything he wants, but I think if you read that book, that holy book he has, you'll figure out real quick what he does and doesn't do. And he doesn't use Satanists to restore glory to a country. Don't you think if he can do anything, he'll raise up somebody that he sees fit? Don't you think he'd raise up someone that he thinks is going to do a good job and not just work with the fallen angelic hybrid being? Come on. And then right after I start saying that, here's 2 or 3 other ones that actually come out and go, well, and then write an article. I'm like, I always have to be the first one to stick my neck out, and then all of a sudden all these other people start doing it too. Because you know what? What I found is the people who believe in Jesus or say they believe in Jesus and they're all packed in these churches, they really don't even know who he is, okay? Because they're so busy with all their men. The first thing they start doing is chasing men. Chasing men, elect this guy, find that. You know what? Jesus never said to do that. So when you see these Christians doing that, you can rest assured that they're not following Jesus, because Jesus didn't say to do that. So I have more respect for people that, even a Satanist that sticks to his guns and wants to be a Satanist, I have more respect for him than I do these people in the churches. I'm like Jesus. He said, be hot or cold. Either worship Satan with all your heart or worship him with all your heart. Stop being in the middle, lukewarm. It'd be one or the other. Pick a side and be that. But quit walking in the middle trying to participate in both worlds. But what I want people to understand that are not, that don't know who Jesus is I want to blow the lid off the people who say they know him and show you that they don't. Okay? If they knew him, they wouldn't support people like Donald Trump or any of the candidates. They're all Satanists. Every one of them are Luciferians, every one of them, bar none. So, and they do, so that just clearly shows me they have no relationship with Jesus, because if they did, they would hear from the Holy Spirit that it's all corrupt. And the Bible actually tells them not to do that, tells them to look to Jesus, follow Jesus. So they're not following Jesus, they're following men. So be one or the other. Quit walking down the middle line, is what I say. And I wanted people to know about what goes on. I want you to understand where I come from and how I worked. I was a former occultist, and in every single occultist, what they do is we learn a different language. Our language is based on numbers and phrases and words, and all the same numbers and phrases and words that the normal people in the world use, except for we use them differently. We learn how to use numbers to communicate, and we learn how to use phrases to communicate and words. And you would never know that's what we're doing because you're not taught that. Manly P. Hall made a very good statement about symbols and and numbers and stuff that are in the communications in the Secret Mysteries book that he has. He wrote about that because this is how occultists speak, because they use numbers. And if you are trained in that, which I am, then I look at a story that you might read, and I completely see something else. I see things that you'll never see because that's not your training. So I want to hit a band called Hillsong and the church called Hillsong. And I want to make sure that the non-believers, non-Christians, the people who don't believe in Jesus, I want you to see how rampantly evil these so-called Christian bands are. I want you to see this. I'm not going to pick on Ozzy Osbourne and all them. We already know they are. I mean, 9-inch nails, that's the standard size of nails that the Romans used to nail people to a cross. So we already know who these people belong to. They're very obvious and open about it. But I want you non-believers, I want you to see just how corrupt and rotten these so-called Christians are. And if you're a Christian and you listen to these people, then you're obviously, you got problems. Because obviously you blind and you can't see, okay? Because they worship in their concerts back in Australia is pyramids. The whole stage is backed up by like several pyramids behind them with the all-seeing eye. Come on, guys. How much more satanic can you get? That's the eye of Horus, the sun god. Lucifer, false light. There you go. Then they have albums like I Am. Well, for you people that are not believers, let me explain to you how actually wicked saying I Am is when you have all this occult numerology and symbols on your album. Jesus said, I am, okay? God said, he told Moses, you tell them I am sent you. Okay, so in essence, these are God the Father and Jesus Christ that call themselves God by saying I am. So that right there is a red flag. The I is two pillars put side by side, which is number 11, by the way. It's a Master Mason number. And two pillars is the pillars of masonry, the red and the blue, right? And then they have a 20 degrees, a infinity sign. Okay, this infinity sign, okay, that actually is, people think it's just a little symbol, but it's not. It actually is used by the Satanists, okay? That's actually something that they use in their, language. And the 11, of course, is the Master Mason number. And then you have the checkered floor, which is also duality, black-white. The checkered Masonic floor, that's duality. And then you have the I Am, the Viacom, up, down, up, down, up, down. It's like upside down triangle, up, right side up triangle, and you have two of those which signifies 11. Okay, so I can't imagine. You've got the square and compass on this album. No problem, square and compass. It's all right there. I don't know how anybody. You've got the lightning, which is the lightning that fell from heaven. I saw Satan fall from heaven like lightning. So you can see that these guys are very occultic, but they're claiming to be of God, right? But the infinity, actually, in ancient India and Tibet, it represented this perfection, dualism, duality, the unity between male and female. In the occult, I used to do tarot cards, by the way, and in the occult tarot, it's linked to magic, and it represents the equilibrium or the balance of various forces. It's called the Ouroboros, and it's a circular serpent biting its tail. I'm sure you guys have seen that. It's a UN symbol for human settlement. It's been found in that shape as well. And in modern times, it became a secular mathematical symbol for infinity in numbers, time, or space, but that's not what it was. The ritual circle has different meanings to different groups. It's protection from evil, symbolic of life cycles or completeness, 9 feet across with a smaller one inside, and then they draw a pentagram that they draw inside of it. That's how it's done. And another occult symbol is the triangle, and it refers to thaumaturgic. Triangle is used in ceremonial magic to summon a demon into a ritual circle, and it's also the symbol seen on persecuted Jews, who are not persecuted, by the way, and gays in Nazi concentration camps. This triangle is worn as a badge, was done purposefully to cast a spell on the ones that wore them. And so anyway, they were black magic grimoires. That's where they got all this stuff out of the black magic grimoires. And Satan is, he also mocks Jesus by calling himself I am. I am is the name or mantra for the crown chakra, spiritual higher self, okay? So that is another thing that gets into the Hinduism, okay? And what they say is this indwelling or overshadowing divinity in each of us, the basic spiritual self, which we can all draw upon. They call it the El-Ain, means literally I am, and this center represents the consciousness, the I am consciousness within. That's what they say. So they are totally blaspheming. Then you have the lightning bolt that they have on their album. Well, the satanic S represents a lightning bolt, and that means destroyer. Okay, in mythology, it was the weapon of Zeus, and it was worn to have power over others, and it was also worn by the SS of Nazi Germany. Okay, so the lightning bolt represents Satan, and if you look in if you do believe in Jesus, you have a Bible. Look in Luke, I believe it's 10:18. And he said unto them, I beheld Satan as lightning fall from heaven. You can also see KISS, Black Sabbath, AC/DC. That was more from, and but that's all. It's a very unique symbol to Satanism. You also are going to see on one of their albums a spiral, and this is used above strands for the ancient goddess symbol of the universal pattern of growth in nature. Okay, a variation with 3 lines was used by some to represent the number of the beast, 666, and you will see that on one of their albums. Also, the pyramid is an ancient form based on holiness of the number 3. Everything and that's what it gets me, you guys. Remember the last show I said, isn't it funny how everything Jesus did? When I got on this side and I was in the occult, when I came to this side, I started to notice that everything that this Jesus guy was learning about, everything he does, I noticed it was mirrored in the occult. So wow, that is, I wasn't aware of that. Okay, but it's based on the holiness of the number 3, and to the ancient mystery religions, 3, not 6, is considered the most spiritual number. So if anybody is under the impression it's 6, you're wrong. It's 3, okay? And a pyramid was a structure used specifically to call up the demonic or occult, a point of psychic activity. So, and then on one of their albums, The Beautiful Change, they have the triangles that were used for magical purposes to cast spells, okay? And they also have the All-Seeing Eye on their album cover and the Ritual Circle, okay? So then you have on their stage, you have the pyramid, like I said. Now, here's what I thought was odd. They're singing a song, My God, I'll Ever Give My All. Excuse me, who is their God when the pyramid stands with the All-Seeing Eye, and it's right there behind them, and they've got all this going on, and they're singing this, okay, during their so-called praise worship, okay? So anyway, this is one of the things that I think, it's the Eye of Horus, by the way, the All-Seeing Eye. This is one of the things, the Kabbalah is satanic because it blinds people to the truth. It actually will put scales on a person's eyes. It actually will. This is the Kabbalah. You'll see Madonna, Britney Spears, multiple people wearing a red string around their wrist. That means they're a student of Kabbalah. Okay, that's what that means, that they're a student of Kabbalah. Almost all great witches and sorcerers of this century were Kabbalists. Okay? Kabbalism is a system of Jewish mysticism and magic, and it is the foundational element in modern witchcraft. Do not let someone tell you that modern witchcraft has nothing to do with Kabbalah, because it is the foundational, absolutely foundational element in modern witchcraft. If they tell you otherwise, they're lying. Okay? So then you see in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, the hottest spiritual trend was the New Age movement. Okay? And then as you go forward through the first decade of the 21st century, in the latest cure-all spiritual phenomenon that they're bringing the gullible masses, is now the Jewish Kabbalah. It is actually a newfound popularity in this sorcery, and it's not by accident, okay? The emergence of Kabbalah has been very carefully planned by the Illuminati, very carefully. So I wanted to showcase a Christian, supposedly, band, because I want even the people who do not believe, I want you to see just how ludicrous these so-called Christians and their so-called music actually is. I want you to see that these people are not who they say they are, and they're behaving exactly like the people that are in the world. So I think that, Scott, it's very important for us to it's important for us to show that I know before I came to decide, if somebody would have said to me, if they would have called out and said, look, I'm going to show you occult symbols in commercials and music videos, and they sat there and banged on Kiss and Ozzy Osbourne and all this, but they never looked at these Christian bands, and they never said, hey, okay, let's be honest. How is that any different from this? You know, there needs to be there has to be some kind of honesty placed out there, because people do not like this, because Christians are very duplicitous about their behavior. At least the Satanists say they're Satanists. At least these people that, you know, I sold my soul to the devil. Katy Perry, Lady Gaga, I sold my soul to the devil. Kanye West, I sold my soul to the devil. Jay-Z, I sold my soul to the devil. Hey, you know what? At least they admit it. Okay? But these Christians say they believe in Jesus, and they point their fingers, their judgmental fingers, at people who are outside of their little clique, and they want to make them look like they're such bad people, when actually, if you look at their literature and their music and everything, they have the Triquetra in their Bibles. You have a Triquetra in your Bibles. Do you have any idea what that is? I mean, that's a witch's, a total occult symbol. Okay, it represents the unholy Trinity. Oh, no, that represents Trinity. No, it doesn't. Why would you have that in your Bibles? So the point is I think, Scott, it is important for people who are unbelievers to know that there is another way. This Christian way is not the way to Jesus. That's the way to hell. They're just as bad as the Satanists because they're worshiping the same God. They just call him by a different name. So I think it's really important that we show this and we let people know, hey, it doesn't matter who's saying this and who's throwing up these symbols. They all mean the same thing.
Well, I a long time ago stopped listening to what they supposedly call Christian music. And the reason is that everything I was listening to was actually injecting a doctrine or saying things that were not scriptural. You had to listen. You had to be ready to bring it in and say, does this actually compare to the Word of God? And so, like for instance, Julie, that this whole issue, and we were talking about this, that I'm dealing with locally here, started with a bunch of Christians on the patio. I went to a barbecue, and they were singing Kumbaya. Within minutes, there was a manifestation of someone that I know is a witch who had infiltrated the group, and things have not been the same for me since I tried to intervene and deal with the situation. Can you tell us about Kumbaya?
Sure. Kumbaya is a song that I did not really, I didn't know Christians had anything to do with that, but when I started hearing all these Christian people singing this song, I almost fell off my chair, because the word Kumbaya is a name, and it is the name of a very extremely powerful demon. So these morons are in their churches saying, Kumbaya, my Lord. So they're calling this extremely powerful demon their Lord. So if you're a Satanist, then you know what that means. If you're a witch and you're listening, you know what that means. We know what it means, okay? It's these people in the churches that say they worship Jesus and are calling a high-level demon their Lord. So don't be surprised when you're singing that song and you have a manifestation, somebody starts manifesting demons, or you yourself go down, or a powerful entity and his gang of, rogue demons come filling in the room you're in and causing trouble and possessing people and going after people. You just called him your Lord. You get what you asked for. But, yeah, I was in shock. Remember when you told me that, I almost fell off my chair. I was like, they're calling down a demon. And, when Scott said, even Scott was like, you're kidding. I said, no, that's what that means. And I noticed that it's saying a lot at these Christian camps and all that stuff, Scott.
Right. And then the Shekinah glory, pretty much in that same category that has been taught. And I can remember when that teaching started coming in, I think I was a fairly new Christian. I became a Christian in 93, and somewhere around 95 is when I started hearing that. So you want to bring us up to speed on that too?
Yeah, the Shekinah glory, I listened to almost every one of these pastors that I would listen to them, and I cataloged these people by name that were saying this. Well, then I'm watching them. They're throwing up the Baphomet and throwing up the 666 and throwing up the pyramid and all this stuff and the 5 points and all this crap. And so I immediately know what they're doing. But for those who say they are Christians, the Jews in Kabbalah, they believe that there's a male and a female. God is both male and female. Duality, the yin and the yang. Okay, that's the black and the white. That's what you see with the Kardashians. You'll see that covers their floors in their home is black and white. It's duality. Bruce Jenner becoming a woman, but he's a man. See, this is what they believe in, duality. And so here's the thing. Shekinah is the goddess. That's the female goddess of God. That's a goddess. They're worshiping a goddess, and they're asking the Shekinah goddess to come down into their sanctuary. Now, personally, I believe that all these pastors know what they're doing because, you see, I know who they are. I bothered to look into where did these guys come from? Who are they? Where do they learn these things? And as I began to research where they got their little colleges and their schools, their theological colleges that they call seminaries, like Semiramis, the goddess, inseminated with false knowledge, that's what they're doing. And I found out that the Jesuits, the crypto Jews, were the ones that that funded and built all of these. They funded them. They built them. And they started teaching these people all this stuff that wasn't true. And these people joined this Kabbalistic crap, and here they go. And so I could see the duplicitous nature of these men who were saying this and calling this some kind of Holy Spirit or glory of God. Oh, yeah, it's the goddess, which we all know is Lucifer, because he is the symbol of duality. Look at Baphomet, goat head, man body, breast, female breast. I mean, there you go. It's duality once again. So when you're calling Shekinah, you're calling down a goddess that has been worshipped for thousands of years. So again, we see duplicitous nature in the church. We see the Kabbalah. And by the way, if you guys have ever wondered, even unbelievers, you've seen the Jews at the Wailing Wall, and you'll see them there, and they're and they're doing all this stuff, and they're doing this rocking back and forth. Let me tell you what they're doing. They are mimicking copulation with the goddess Shekinah. They're mimicking copulation. That's what they're doing. And you tell me that is a God of the Holy Bible, that text. Tell me that's the. Go read that Bible and then tell me that's what they're worshiping. Okay, copulating with this female goddess of Shekinah at the wall. So It's wicked. It's totally wicked, Scott.
Yeah. Wanted to mention, too, the Wailing Wall was not the temple wall. That was most likely the wall that was part of the Roman soldiers where they were housed. But by what they do by putting the prayers into the walls, and Hillary Clinton did this, that's a form of witchcraft or witchcraft prayers. Has nothing to do with God. Everything you see there is an abomination. Now, last night on my show, I posted a picture of a man that had come to a Christian event, and he, didn't go into too much detail. I didn't know whether he was a voodoo guy or whatever the deal was, but he was a male who had breasts. And when he showed up at the thing, he started manifesting. Now, Julie, I'd shown you the picture, and then like I say, I posted it on the show last night when I had the chat room open. But we also see the same thing with Baphomet. We also see that Freemasonry goes all the back to the Cabal. And so these are all tied together, and we have transgender, we have transhumanism. We have all of these things that, again, are mixing and bringing everything together. Now, you made a comment. I was a little concerned that it might have been too much for everybody, and I mentioned about, this is the kind of stuff we're going to see, and then you made a comment. Do you remember what that comment was when I mentioned about that?
I said, "Oh, that's nothing."
That's nothing. That's right. And you any descriptions that you think?
Oh, you wait till they transform into what they really are. These men can transform into a goddess of a woman. They will look like a beautiful goddess, woman, man, and whatever you like, man. I'm talking to you, dudes. Whatever you like. The most perfect woman you can imagine, that's what's going to walk in front of you. And it's a man, but you won't know that. And they will do whatever they can to seduce you, and then they'll turn right back into what they are in front of you. those breasts were a manifestation of a very small part of what these people can do. They are extremely powerful.
Yeah, it was disturbing, and the situation. You know, I have seen a lot of manifestations. I have seen the altering, the morphing of face. I've seen the canines. I've seen the earlobes. I've seen the eyes. I've seen everything. And it may be only for a short time, but it's there. And once you see something like that, then you fully realize that the physical is not bound to the laws that we're told that they're held to. There's the ability for things, you know, just like the reptilian issues, all these videos that we see. And you know, the thing of it is, I've been noticing, been thinking today, and I don't know how I'm going to approach this. You know, Julie and you and I were talking about some of the other talk shows, and some things were coming to mind today, and we didn't get a chance to talk, but I wanted to go over some things, and we'll do that later because I want to review it before we even talk about it. But you know, things are not as they appear. Those things hidden. And when we get information that tells us, just like this thing that happened in Orlando, those things in Boston, you know, later on we find out that that these things were fake, they were a lie. And what came after it, well, was the enactment or the mimicking of martial law, the extreme law enforcement behavior of those supposedly in charge that come along after these false flags. And Julie, you want to bring us up to speed again about some of the occult things that you found with this Orlando shooting that leads you to believe otherwise from what everyone else believes?
Yeah, well, first of all, CNN. I want you guys to take the name Fox, the Fox Network. That is 666 in Pythagorean numerology. I'm going to tell you it's CNN. I want you to flip CNN up on its head. C at the bottom, N. That's the two N's toward the top, and you're going to see 2 threes. That's 33. Okay, that's one of their most sacred numbers. As I showed you, 3 is their most sacred number. So they work in triplicate, and anything that's done twice or triplicate is the highest form of magic, okay? That's what it is, most powerful. All right, whenever I read an article like that, what I look at is I look for certain symbols, certain letters, the name of the club. I will look at the people involved, and I look at the shirts they're wearing. I look at where they put a tourniquet. Being from the medical industry myself, I actually know how to do all that. And so when I see a tourniquet way down here and the wound is way up here, I know something's wrong with this picture. I also look at numbers. And when I look at these news stories, every single time, without fail, okay, this is without fail, their numbers are adding up to the occult numbers in Freemasonry, okay, in Kabbalah, the Jewish Kabbalah, okay? So you have 49 people that are supposedly killed, plus 9 is 13. See, this is how they do it. And you may not see this, and you may say, oh, that's stupid. But you have to understand something. When you're an occultist, you learn all of these symbols. You learn what to look for. You learn this language that exists between occultists and not you. So the average person will just go, oh, that's no big deal. Oh, come on. That's what they want you to do. They want you to not believe it. And that's why they know you don't know what's going on, and they know you never will, because they know that you're not going to believe. Most of you won't believe a person like me. Even though I came out of the occult, you're still not going to believe me, because to you it seems so far-fetched. You don't understand how far evil will go. Now, I want to tell you something else. Somebody says, well, there were body parts everywhere, and your point would be? Well, there was blood everywhere, and your point would be? Do you know how many body parts? What? I think it was on the other show. I bothered to tell you guys, do you know what Satanists and occultists give each other for Christmas? They exchange body parts of their victims. That's what they give each other for Christmas. So they have tons of body parts. They can fetch any body part they want. They can have a ritual and kill 25 people and have all their body parts. See, what you're not getting is that evil will go as far as it has to convince you of the goal, okay? Now, when these so-called people of truth start telling stories and start, oh, well, they had, no, that's not right, because they had body parts everywhere. Okay, I don't really care what you think about body parts, because obviously you either don't know the occult or you haven't done your homework, okay? Because that's no big deal for them. And I want you to listen to something, okay? I'm going to give you the secret teachings of all ages that Manly P. Hall wrote, and I want you to hear this because these are his words, not mine. Quote, symbolism is the language of the mysteries. In fact, it is the language of not only mysticism and philosophy, but of all nature. For every law and power active in universal procedure is manifested to the limited sense perceptions of a man through the medium of symbols. Every form existing in the diversified sphere is symbolic of the divine activity by which it is produced. By symbols, men have ever sought to communicate to each other those thoughts which transcend the imitations of language. Rejecting man-conceived dialects as inadequate and unworthy to perpetuate divine ideas, the mysteries thus chose symbolism as a far more ingenious and ideal method of preserving their transcendental knowledge. In a single figure, a symbol may both reveal and conceal, for to the wise, the subject of the symbol is obvious, while to the ignorant, the figure remains inscrutable. Hence, he who seeks to unveil the secret doctrine of antiquity must search for that doctrine not upon the open pages of books, which might fall into the hands of the unworthy, that's you, but in the place where it was originally concealed. Page 38, The Secret Teachings of All Ages, unquote. There you go, okay? The mysteries is a reference to the mystery religions, or ancient pagan religions and occult practices that are expressed through symbolism. And he then states, Manly P. Hall, that divine ideas have been chiefly expressed, hidden, and passed on to future generations through symbols rather than language, so that most people in society would never be able to understand or even notice their meaning. And the secret doctrine of the occult, the grand goal of all the ancient religions, is in hidden symbols. Okay? So that's one of the things that I do is I read articles, I read these stories, and I immediately can see whether it is true or it is false. So all of you out there, oh, people got killed. I saw. There was body parts. Big whoop-de-doo, man. They kill people all the time. They have millions of body parts. They can throw them all over the place. They could have killed 25 people before they even started that whole mess. See, what people don't get is how far evil will go to convince you of whatever it is they want you to believe. You don't understand that spirits, these fallen angels and these demons, have the power to literally get inside your head and make you see something that never happened. Have you ever asked 3 people that saw the same thing exactly right in their face what happened, and all 3 of them tell a different story? Because their messages are what they see is being absolutely defined by the demons within them. Demons can make you see something happen that never even occurred. They can make you believe something that never even happened. They've done it to me. They did it to me. Made me believe that I was somewhere that I never went. I'm convinced I never went there. But I would have sworn I did. So I'm telling you that this is how this stuff works. This is concert. This is the perfect concerto, the perfect orchestra, all working together, okay? And most of your police departments, fire departments, all these people are sold out to Lucifer, brother man. This is how these cats get down. Okay, this is how they roll. But what they do, they manufacture news events and all of these things. You say, well, how could all those people be in on it? Hey, listen, when you sold out to Satan, when you wanted them, when you're a child of the devil, when you are a hybrid being, which most of these people are, or clones, whose side are you going to serve? You know, the entire town of Newton, Connecticut is a Satanist town, and there wasn't anyone living there that wasn't a Satanist. The town, Newton, 33, Pythagorean numerology. Robbie Parker, who had his daughter killed, Parker, 33, Pythagorean numerology. You have to understand, this is more widespread than you even know. This goes deeper than you even can wrap your tiny little finite brain around. They run the world, my friends, down to the towns, the garbage companies that get the contracts for picking up your trash. Everything is run by Lucifer, and you need to get that in your head. And if you are not a believer, I'm going to present to you knowledge over the next few shows or from now on about different commercials. I want you to see false flag events, commercials, songs, symbols, music. I want you to see how widespread this symbolism is, and that it penetrates every single walk of life down to the decals on your garbage truck. See, that's what I know because I was in that life. This is everything. I can show you how to go to the store and every name brand of everything you come across. Every single thing I could pick out and show you. See that right there? See the spiral? That right there. That's the spiral. Now, I will talk about spirals and frequencies another time because it's deep mathematics, but I can show you what the spiral means. Okay? Everything has a symbol, and every single product you use, be it Tide or the cheap Walmart brand of something, is going to have something on it that tells you where it came from. So, you know, Scott, even the man's name that supposedly the Omar Mateen or whatever his name values in Pythagorean numerology values down to number 6. Okay? 6666. This is what this is, okay? This is exactly what he's doing. They are showing you who they are. They're showing you who did it. And it really amazes me that people who act like they're in the know about this Christian media, blog talk, whatever they call themselves, it really amazes me that these people actually don't see this. They seem to know so many things, but they don't know this obvious, just obvious. Well, they can't pull off something like that. Dude, they own your garbage company. Okay? They own every apartment complex. They own every, you don't get it. Lucifer owns everything. He can do whatever he wants. And he has more than enough followers. So that's my goal, Scott, is to just kind of throw some symbolism and stuff in every now and then and show people latest commercials, anything like that, and show people movies, movie sets, and you can see what they're doing. So now you can, even as an unbeliever, you can go out and look at the world. You'll be able to decipher commercials, news, magazines, even sports, guys. It's terrible in sports. So I want you to learn that so that you can come to understand who actually owns the world. And that, you know, it is true that at one point you're going to have to pick a side. So I just want to show you what I know, and hopefully you'll pick our side. And no pressure, but I just hope you do, because I would really like to continue life, you know, in the hereafter with all of you. And I would like to know everyone that gets this and you start seeing things. I invite you to email me and tell me what you see, and give, you know, I want to know what you think. And if you see commercials or signs, snap a picture, send it to me, and let me know. What do you think it is? You know, I'd like to get your opinion. But, you know, Scott, I think it's really important that we define these things, because you have even these Christian blog talk people that are, I don't even know if they are Christians. or whatever. I don't even know what they are, because they're actually saying this stuff happened. It's just a joke. The whole thing is an entire joke. You know, and just real quickly, I want to mention that a pastor in your area was shot, and he was shot supposedly close range, .45 caliber weapon, 2 times in the head, once in the shoulder, and 5 shots to the back at close range. You know what? I call that crap from day one. You know, my husband has been a law enforcement officer his entire life, and he was actually shot in the line of duty and almost killed. Okay? I understand what gunshots do, and for you to tell me that at close range you got 2 .45 caliber bullets to the head and you didn't have a Band-Aid on you, never lost a one hair, dude, you wouldn't have a head anymore. It would blow your head off. Your body would have had 5 holes in it, and your shoulder would have had a hole in it, and the guy's laying on his back. Yeah, right. Okay? And if you believe that, I got some prime Gulf country land down in the Choccolaya Basin. Okay? Come on. And the minute I started calling this stuff out and we started doing that, what happened? They come back and try to alter the story. See, this is the problem. People don't think. When they read a story, they just don't see the evilness of the agenda and what they're trying to do. Folks, I ask you, friends, always ask, what are they trying to do? What are their goals? Their goals are transgenderism, homosexual, marriage, lesbian, whatever. And what is their other goal? Gun control, gun confiscation. Keep going. And then you look at it and say, would this possibly have happened because they're trying to achieve a goal? Why would this happen? And why is this guy, by the way, did you notice, Scott, that they showed pictures of his house? I'm going to tell you something. In a real police investigation, that would never happen. Never. And that's a statement made by my husband. They would never put pictures of this guy's home on the news. And the reason they did it, did you guys notice all the Disney stuff they kept, pictures kept focusing on? Do you notice that? Do you want to find out about Satan and satanic worship in Walt Disney? Try looking that up. And did you notice that the house was full of Walt Disney? Look, I got 2 kids, and I bought my kids everything under the sun. I mean, spoiled rotten, but my house didn't look like that. And did you notice that the pictures focused on these things? And no police, not one police department would ever allow someone to come in and photograph that house, even if it was the police officers that did it. They would not allow those photographs to go viral online. Scott, I know as a law enforcement officer, you used to be one, you know what I just said is true.
Yeah, when I did evidence retrieval, I used to teach classes on it. You cannot disturb anything at all, and the reason is that the defense can later come along and have that thrown out, and you lose the case. The other is once you bring information to the public, then when it comes to the trial, then you can't find anybody that hasn't been swayed. And so now your jury keeps getting disqualified. It can become a mess. So there's all kinds of reasons why you do not bring that in. Someone can go in and sneak pictures, but anytime they do that, that's intentional. Now, I want to say, 9/11 was a horrible situation. We know that whole thing was staged by the federal government. We know that those that were involved with it were the Bushes, and we know that, okay? Now, people did die. People were hurt. There were people who flung themselves from those tall buildings and hit the ground. So people do get hurt when they pull these stunts. There's no doubt about that. But I want you to take the time, now that the Boston bombing has had time for other people, the third media, basically come in. Just go to Google and type in fake Boston bombing, and you will be absolutely amazed at how much research people have put in who were trauma specialists, surgeons, first responders that just literally looked at the whole situation and could find everything wrong with it. Now, as far as body parts, Julie, what you were saying, about the rituals, but I need to remind everyone, too, that body parts are for sale. if you're a university, if you're some type of lab, cadavers, they're available. I can remember. I don't remember the name of the delivery, whether it was FedEx, UPS, or the other guys. But somebody had ordered a lamp, and somebody had ordered a head. Well, guess what? Some lady got a head in her kitchen, and somebody in the lab got a lamp. So these things are for real. But the other thing, Sandy Hook. Just look at all the information out coming now, for some time now, and there have been people saying all along the whole thing's a lie, and there's even lawsuits coming out of it now. And we need to look at the media that comes from Hollywood, Family Guy, The Simpsons, along with some of these other cartoons and some of the things that are the sitcoms. They even tell us they're going to do this stuff. So as time goes on, you watch, Orlando's going to start appearing where it was seen in Family Guy or Simpsons or something, right? I don't know if Simpsons is even on anymore. But the point of it is just what Julie's saying. Now, do people get hurt? Yeah. Because sometimes when they do set those things off, there is someone standing there. We need to remember the Boston bombers, the guy, they basically ran over the one guy, made sure that he couldn't talk. And when they found the other guy, the one who was hiding in the boat, do you know that they immediately injured his neck, so he had to have a trach put in? That way he couldn't talk. Now, eventually, when they got him drugged up and they did everything else, then he was able to do the court thing. But the two FBI agents that were there to capture him, when he came out of the boat, and then they took the whoever the other agents were, took him away from the two FBI agents. So they knew something was wrong. Those two FBI agents lost their life in a supposable training exercise off the coast of California, I think around San Francisco, in a helicopter crash. Gee, how convenient. It just goes on, and it goes on, and it goes on. Now, I've noticed some people have sent me their blood types. So what I'm going to do, and whether that they've had the brain scans, because once the brain scan's done, then they've mapped your brain and they know exactly how to uncode and to encrypt the what they do. So what they can do then is when they send the signals out, there can be 50 people in a room and you're the only one who hears the voice. That's how well they've gotten this technology down. But anyways, Julie, if there was anyone hurt in this scenario or this thing that they did, then our heart goes out to them. But we need to take a step back and realize that Obama's running towards the end here, and he's going to do everything he can to bring in martial law. And Julie, you were pointing out where you had somebody had witnessed all the martial law signs, thousands of them in these trucks, ready to be distributed all over the United States. Same thing with Walmarts. They're shutting them down, getting them ready. So everything we're seeing is an intent to take away our rights. Because with all the guns that we have in this country, we certainly are someone to be reckoned with. But we also have to remember, too, that most people are not combative ready. Most people are not tactically ready for gun battles, don't understand, or just up for it. So there's a lot of people are going to lose their lives. A lot of people are going to get hurt. A lot of people are going to die. It's just going to be awful. But see this, and we think to ourselves, just like you were saying, Julie, we don't comprehend how evil really is. And Julie, since you and I deal with evil, since you and I do exorcisms and we cast out demons and we hear them brag about how they killed this person and they did this to this person, we see what evil is. And we see in Scripture once in a while, you'll see where God will bring up, or Jesus will bring up, it's really the depths of Satan. Okay, so it's the bottom of the barrel. It's the evil. And that means that they're willing to kill anybody, no matter what sex they are, no matter how old they are, no matter how young they are, they're to be eliminated. And they actually get a brownie button for doing it. They actually get, more power into the spirit realm. And so you need to wake up, people. We need to understand what's really going on here. That's why I get so frustrated with the issues that these supposed Christians come to me with, about what I do. And I'll guarantee you, and I told the last one, I closed the door to a bunch of them. Do you remember the show I did a while back called Spring Cleaning? Well, that's what that was about. When I've had enough and I've done all I can do, and when I shake the dust off of my feet, the door gets closed. Because if I've spent that much time and you haven't got it by now, then there are other people who are willing to listen, and I need to focus on them. There's only so many people you can save, and we certainly try and do what we can, but there's a point in time where we need to understand what's going on and make, it's triage. Julie, you and I are doing triage right now. And since you were in that, you know what it is. I know what it is because of the emergency services I was involved with. And there are just some people we cannot save, and you walk away and go to the others. And as sad as that is, because we know that God wishes that none should perish, that is a fact and a reality. But again, these false flags that are coming out. Let's keep an eye out. Just what Julie's doing is presenting to us the occult side of this with all the new numbers, with all the signs. And again, I know somewhere out in the media, somewhere in some of these cartoons, this last incident down in Orlando, I bet you is in there. Julie, we got about 10 minutes. I'll close it out. If there's anything you want to bring up before we go, I'm sure there's always some kind of ritual coming up. So we got anything that we know of that we should pray against?
You know what? Absolutely. And I'm actually going to on this Friday. I have some information about rituals that are not often spoken about, and I want to make sure that everybody understands what these are. And also next week, I'm going to clear this with Scott. I'm sure he won't mind. But I have someone that I want to bring on who's actually in a foreign country that is seeing the repercussions of the Muslims being brought in by the millions. He is in Germany. He is actually not from Germany. He's from South Africa. But what this man is seeing and what he's dealing with, we really need, some of the things that he said to me today, I was floored. This is information that I have presented to people in the past, way a long time ago, about this whole situation with the Muslims. All Muslim men are homosexuals. All of them. Don't let them tell you they're not, because they're raped from the time they're little. That's how it works. They would rather have sex. Let me tell you, in Afghanistan, let me give you a quick story. Afghanistan, okay, these men in this one tribe, this one area, came in, and all these men were bringing their wives in because their wives weren't getting pregnant, and they didn't understand why their wives were not having children. So they ran all these tests on all these women, and everything was normal. So the women medical staff talked to the women, and the doctors get together, and these are military doctors, okay? And they take these men aside, all of them, and they say, just like, how are you doing it? I mean, how do you... And so they're asking very personal questions. And every single one of them said how they have sex. It's all anal sex. And the doctors said, you can't get your wife pregnant that way. You have to go the other way. Every one of them were sickened, as in vomit, sickened by these surgeons, these doctors telling them they had to have sex in the other way. They were sickened. They thought these doctors, they said, do you do that with your wives? And the physician said, yes. And they went, you're sick. That is disgusting. I can't believe you would do that. That's how every one of these men reacted. And how they learn about sodomy is because it's done to them. And they say, oh, they throw them off buildings. No. Those are not Muslims. The people who are doing that are CIA, Mossad plants, making you think that Muslims don't like homosexuals. Every Muslim man is a homosexual. Their first
and chances are, Julie, those are Christians that are thrown off of there.
That's probably right. So anyway, just so you know, I'm gonna blow the lid off a bunch of this stuff with these occult things coming up. Remember, 7/16/16 is going to be huge. The Pope is getting together with this Hillsong group and all this other stuff. July is 7th month. The 16th day, 1 + 6 is 7. The 16th year, 1 + 6 is 7. So it's 777. Please look up Aleister Crowley Cult of 777. That will tell you exactly what that means and how important it is to the occult for this to go on. So I looked that up, and I also have the 21st is coming up. We're talking serious, massive killing. Massive. Okay, the summer solstice is when the veil is very thin as well. And I'm going to tell you, this is some massive bloodshed that's going to start happening. And all of the blood that's being shed will probably be children. And by the way, today's the 15th. They have begun their week of demon levels. It has begun. So if you can come against that in prayer and pray as much as you can against it, even if you're not a believer, look, you need to seek every angel and every godly angel, every angel of Jesus Christ to come against this stuff, because many children are going to die the most horrible deaths on this summer solstice by all of these elites, including all the royal families. So we got to get ready, right, Scott?
Absolutely. You know, Julie, your story about them not understanding the mechanics of sex, I actually first heard that story in 1970 when I was out of high school for junior high, or for junior college. And that was one of the stories, and if I remember right, that I actually think that it was a Muslim family that the doctor that was teaching the class was telling us about. So that correlates with that. Anyways, what I want to do, as I mentioned before, is if you fill up to sending me your blood type, all I'm trying to do is get something that tells me, if you've been gang stalked or you're dealing with that, is there a correlation? Because some of the research that I'm finding is pointing that way, so that's why I'm asking for it, and so to be a help. And if you don't want to, I get it. That's fine. You don't need to. But again, I there's something connecting here, and that's what I want to resolve. So, anyways, okay. So tomorrow night, let me just bring you up to speed. What I'm going to do. Some of you will be listening, but I want everyone to understand that as men, we've been called to be head of the family. It is God, Jesus, the Holy Spirit, and the man of the house, and the woman, and the kids. And for those who have a hard time with that, those who do not believe that or do not want to believe it, you need to take it up with God. And I can assure you that a house that is not in order is a house that is under the rule of demons. And so and here's the other, and what I want to do tomorrow is that some of the women will say, well, I had to take the reins. I had to be the one to step up because my husband wouldn't do it. Well, that may be the case. And so, as I mentioned yesterday night on my show, going after the women with their issues, I'm going to be going after the men tomorrow night, because the time is very short. You've been called to a standard that needs to be met in order for the righteousness of the Lord to move. Because you see, God is a God of honor. He's a God of order. He will not inflict, he will not force himself upon us. We have free will. And as I mentioned, or the show tonight, the involuntary behavior, that the behavior in itself is how God sees you. Now, God also loves a woman with a sweet and gentle spirit. I forgot to mention that last night. Okay, and so the question is, where are you on that scale? Are you in the middle? You can go both ways, or as far as your attitude. Are you just somebody who's willing to love and serve, and like Mary, the ex-prostitute? When she came to the understanding of what was going on, look how she served. Look how she treated Jesus. And so, to bring in any other behavior tells us really where you're at. Now, you may be in a survival mode. So that's the other thing that, I wanted to address. And you may be in that survival mode because, as a woman, because your husband failed or your father failed. Many of you do not feel the Father's love because you didn't feel your earthly father's love. And so there's a separation, there's a disconnect, there's abandonment, there's rejection. And in that rejection is a order that is not an order. And because of that rejection, then the demons come in. And when the demons come in and set up camp, set up home, then your will and emotions are being handled or manipulated and controlled. I call it puppeteering. And it sways you one way or another. And it's terrible because you never have a good day. So there's no blame here. We just need to understand what's going on because we can only reach so many people, so I'm hoping that a higher percentage of the people who listen to me get it. Because, and you may have a spouse that is at a disadvantage. They may have been injured on a job. I know of a case where there were vaccines given to a husband, and he was never right again. And so now the wife has had to assume that position. And it hasn't been an easy task because that wasn't what she was built to do. And so there was an instant, a particular thing that took place of having, quote, nervous breakdowns. By the way, it's not uncommon for Mormon women to have nervous breakdowns, to actually be run into the ground and have exhaustion, because their religion is based on works. Now, you'll notice that when they were gathered together, and Mary came with expensive, perfumes, oils, and, used them on Jesus, the other guys were mad. There was an incident that took place in the kitchen because she wasn't in there helping. And so there was a time that Jesus just wanted everyone to relax and enjoy his last days on earth together because he knew what was coming. He knew that he had to give himself. And so he was just simply enjoying the family that he had. Those were his brothers. Those were his sisters. And so what an amazing time. That's just something that to have experienced that, it must have been incredible. But we also know that those who followed, and Julie, maybe we can talk about it another time because we're short on time, but we have to remember that those who were persecuted, those who were, disemboweled, set on fire, beheaded, hung upside down on the cross, all these horrible atrocities done to them, that with their following of Jesus, that they knew that the tyrant, demonic government that was running everything, they were seen as enemies of the state. And so, Julie, next time around, maybe we can talk more about that. And so by being placed in that position, then we're seen as enemies of the state, when in reality that's what this country should have been about. So it shows you the complete turnaround. And there was somebody had mentioned that they had watched, Dave, maybe it's you. I think so. It was you, Dave. And if you didn't want me to say your name, I'll say it anyway. But you had sent me a link about how you had seen Trump, and in his testimony or in his campaigning, that all the flags had the gold trim on them, like I was talking about, which meant that particular court situation, building, was under the auspices of international law, and that there were eagles on it too as well, which I mentioned before in the show, means it's under a military court or control. And that the flags behind Hillary were the same way. Good cop, bad cop. So let's wake up and understand what's really going on out there, that everything that we're seeing is an absolute lie. And by the way, maybe on Monday, I'm going to go more in detail on that. So because Tuesday I'm going to be doing the psychotronics, maybe Thursday. I'll do that. Let's do that. Psychotronics on Tuesday, and America versus the corporate America, because there is a difference. The Congress many years ago sold us out, and through the incorporation, then we were placed under international law. That's why the flags are the way they were. So we're no longer the, quote, United States and the in of the people. We're actually incorporated, being placed under those things of British, those things of the Illuminati, those things of the Jesuit bankers, the Zionists. It's amazing that when you really see things for what they are, then you understand why things are the way they are. And the other is that the fact that we've stood down and we've allowed evil to prevail. Evil is completely taken over, and just like Julie says, it's so ingrained in everything. In fact, we were mentioning today, see, we were raised in evil. So, if you were raised in a barn, you ever heard the story, were you raised in a barn because of your mannerisms? Well, you think that's the way everything's done. You think your behavior is okay. Just like people in other countries who have cultures, like the 3 months I spent over in Taiwan, beating something back into the dish so you could eat it, I found absolutely horrifying. But they were okay with that. Okay, well, that's nothing I'm going to do unless times are that bad. But the point of it is, it was so bizarre for me that for them, that's all they knew. So they didn't think there was anything wrong with it. And so we've grown up around evil so long, we don't think there's anything wrong with it. And meaning that's we think it's a part of our culture, we think it's a part of the churches, we think it's a part of the government or society. And I tell you what, when you really truly see how things are, you're not gonna go along with the program anymore. So, anyways, all right, Julie, thank you. We'll see you on Friday. Good night.